So I just want to talk a little bit about something that I find very interesting, and that is handedness. And I think there's a lot to it, and I think there's a lot more to it than people talk about or realize. Most people, I think it's 1 in 9 people in the world are right-handed, and that seems to be the common thing. I mean, we live in a right-handed world where most things are set up and expected to be right-handed people because most people are right-handed. And then you have the left-handed folk, basically the same as the right-handed folk, except that whatever is working off their left brain has been switched to their right brain, therefore affecting the opposite hand as the dominant. And I don't know, it's kind of curious that we have a dominant at all. Um, Often people, most people would be right-handed, but they might do a few things left-handed or vice versa. But by and large, it's very much one or the other. A couple other things is when I tell people I'm neither right nor left-handed, they might assume that I am ambidextrous. And that's not quite the case. I mean, it is from a certain point of view, but ambidexterity would be defined as the equal distribution and use of the two hands. But there's also one more, and that's mixed-handedness, or a more modern term for it would be cross-dominance. And that's exactly what I am, and it's taken me a lifetime to figure out the nuts and bolts of what it means to be like that. The difference between mixed-handedness and or cross-dominance and ambidexterity is, I think, like this. You imagine an ambidextrous person as identical twins within a person. You have each side of you is identical, a mirror image. They look the same, they act the same, they can do the same things. So kind of like a double of the same personality. Cross-dominance, on the other hand, would be more like fraternal twins, and that's what I deal with. You have two different, separate, distinct personalities, and each one of them do a different role in your life. And you might be able to switch back and forth depending on the situation. For instance, when I go bowling, I usually start with the left hand, but if I'm doing terrible, I'll just take a chance on the right and see what happens. So yeah, it's a little weird, and I haven't found too much information online. I've searched all over for a couple years to find out more about what cross-dominance is, and there's not a lot of information out there. And one phenomenon I wanted to share that is really strange to me, that happens to me, and I've never spoken with anyone else or found anyone on the internet that goes through this, but I'll do a thing where I call it a misfire. I'll literally go to put on my belt or open a coffee can or any basic mundane action, and I look down and I realize I'm doing it the opposite hand that I would have the day before. Usually I would think that most people are predominantly one hand or the other. They're going to just do it that way automatically. Why on earth am I misfiring and all of a sudden doing something one way that I would normally do the other? If I sit down and have a meal, there's no rhyme or reason to whether I pick up the left or the right. It just happens to be that way. It's very strange. And what I've learned is that with people with cross-dominance, it's because both sides of the brain are active. It's almost like they're in conflict, and the corpus callosum, which is the big part of your brain that blends it all together, is actually a lot larger. And one of the setbacks of being a cross-dominant person is the fact that you double process. It has to go back and forth and check with both sides, and they have to come to consensus. It's almost like a delayed reaction with a dual processor in your head. So that's problematic, and it says that would lead to certain types of mental problems or learning disabilities or emotional problems, especially at an early age. And with me, nothing like that was identified. Nobody understood why I was having learning difficulties or why I had emotional problems as a youth or a young kid. And for many years, I just assumed it was bipolar disorder for a long time, undiagnosed, but I definitely saw the pattern of bipolar 2 in my life. And that was kind of governed by high highs and low lows, being like a fanatic about one position only to reverse the position later. And it just seems like really unsteady and inconsistent. And I suppose it is, admittedly. But once I found out what cross-dominance was, I realized that maybe that's what's going on instead, because some of the setbacks being emotional problems and confusion and over-processing and social problems even, sometimes feeling like a huge egomaniac, like on a stage performing, and other times too scared to even go out in public and feeling like a hermit. huge waves of both of those contradictory things at once. But one of the benefits of the having cross dominance is, well, besides that you have two different ways to do things. For me, anyway, the right hand is more precise. It's what I write with my right hand. Body functions and stuff are right-handed, like finesse, care, kind of, nurturing energy. But then the left hand for me is extremely powerful. It says with people that are cross-dominant will even have different sizes or different looks to each side of their body, and I know for me that's true. If I do one of these and I flex, I mean, not really much there, but one side is definitely a lot bigger than the other. My arms, and even going down the side of my torso, it's way more powerful. And even my dad confirmed this when I asked him. I told him about this thing about me. And he said that, yeah, when you were a kid, when a little boy, I'd give you a baseball, and with your right hand, you would hit the mark every single time. But with your left hand, you were twice as powerful. And that's totally the case. So for me, having this and seeing the benefits or the problems with it, other benefits just being that you have both sides of your brain. You have both a pragmatic and a creative side. You're both well structured, and you're full of creative chaos, which that's me. A lot of times. So yeah, I excelled at things like swimming and playing drums. I think the drums was really soothing because I have 4 limbs and sometimes even singing, so 5 different things going on, and it delegates and it uses all that processing power. So, but maybe one of the other downfalls of this kind of thing is that if you can't come to a consensus between your 2 poles, let's say, then you might not do anything at all. So inside you might have a great urge to do something, and then a great worry that it's not going to work or it's not right, and therefore nothing gets done. So anyway, I'm hoping that gives you a little bit of insight into the psychology of somebody that has both sides of their brain working at once. And I suppose at worst, this can definitely be thought of as bipolar disorder too. It can be seen in that light. It has a lot of the same things. But I would say that somebody who's bipolar may not necessarily have a handedness issue. I'm taking it starts from the fact that there's 2 conflicting personalities basically within one, with both sides of the brain activated. So that would be cross dominance, where someone maybe is bipolar, they have that, but it doesn't extend into their physical handedness. So I'm hoping if anybody sees this and they know anything about this or have their own experiences to share, I'd love to hear it, because I know a few people that have both hands, but it's not something I've seen really talked about. So anyway, enjoy. Have a good day.